We're recording here before the opening lines have come out. Kyle, if I just told you Cowboys in San Francisco, what would you say that opening line should be?
Let's call it 4.5. Let's call it 4.5 points in favor of the 49ers. I think the 49ers are clearly the more talented team. At the same time, I felt pretty confident Dallas was going to win that game against Tampa. I could see a path to victory for the Buccaneers with a strong defensive performance, but ultimately the Cowboys had a better defense and a better offense. It felt like it was an inevitability that Dallas would win, even if Tom Brady magic came through at the end for Tampa. But I think Dallas is clearly the more talented team. I mean, these are two of the three best teams in the NFC. They're the teams we've been saying all season are the three good teams in the NFC. This is two of them. So I would say San Francisco about 4.5 would be the line that I would set at this point if I were trying to get equal value on both sides.
Brock Purdy, he's going to be the big storyline for San Francisco going into this one. The first half didn't look great. Kind of looked a little troubling. He started at one point 50% completion percentage, and then the fourth quarter happened. 25 unanswered. They just ran away with the game, almost like that moment of one of the Seahawks players grabbing Deebo Samuel's legs just triggered the team and got an emotional response, because after that point, there was no looking back. Seattle was standing on the train tracks, and the San Francisco 49ers were telling them toot toot.
So going back to the Seahawks game, because I feel like other than the Deebo Samuel almost getting tripped, there was one play that really changed the fortunes of the game. Because like we were talking about this, like on the first 4 possessions of the game, so 2 Seahawks, 2 49ers, the 49ers outgained Seattle 130-4 in the first 2 possessions. Like the Niners were awesome to start the game, and they were up 10-0 and they were dominating that game. And then you look up at halftime and it's 17-16 Seahawks, and you're like, wow, how did that happen? And the way I joke about it is Pete Carroll just ripping cigarettes on the sidelines and calling the do cool shit Kenneth Walker or do cool shit DK Metcalf play. Because lost in all of this is kind of incredible that DK Metcalf stutter stepped and then burned Charvarius Ward at the 30-yard line. It's kind of impossible that a man that size could put that much speed on a pretty good corner like Ward. Anyways, the moment that I felt like turned the game was when it was 23-17. The Seahawks had the ball at the, I believe it was 3rd and 1 or 3rd and goal. And Dre Greenlaw punches the ball out on Geno Smith, and the 49ers recover, and then they go down and score a touchdown. At that point, it was like the Seahawks had done everything perfect, and that was the end of that run.
I do want to interrupt you a little bit just because I want to give proper credit. It was actually Charles Omenihu with the strip sack. Charles Omenihu, former Texas Longhorns product, actually came in with the big play. In that last game, it was a little concerning. It did seem like Nick Bosa wasn't much of a factor, and Bosa's obviously he's coming off a year in which he can easily make a claim for Defensive Player of the Year. I'll be curious to see how he lines up against this Dallas offensive line, and if he's able to make his presence known, if the defensive line is going to be able to get in there and make things uncomfortable for Dak, because Dak at this point is more of a pocket quarterback. He's not much of a scrambling type, and I feel as though those are the quarterbacks that tend to give the Niners the most issues, quarterbacks with a little mobility. That's why even before the playoffs started, you were asking me about great playoff matchups, great playoff opponents for the 49ers. I actually told you I was okay with them facing Seattle or Green Bay more than I was them facing the New York Giants, just because I know that mobile quarterbacks give them much more of a decided matchup disadvantage than guys are more strictly pocket passers like Dak is at this point in his career. So I think this is where the Niners have a chance. I will say that I am concerned if CeeDee Lamb ends up on a matchup against Demondour Lenoir. That seems to be the weak spot of the Niners defense right now, that second corner position. And if the Cowboys are worth their salt, they'll be doing all they can to exploit that matchup advantage, as the Niners tend to not switch sides on their corners. It's a set system they have in play. You play the left side, I play the right side. They've been doing it for years. I know in week 17, when the Cowboys played the Eagles, they were able to put CeeDee Lamb in the slot, and that really broke open that game for them. I wonder if they're going to do a similar type thing to kind of avoid that Charvarius Ward matchup. The second big thing for the Cowboys is going to be, what are they going to do to stop this Niners offense? Because aside from Brock Purdy, Christian McCaffrey, ever since the acquisition, has been all worldly, all pro. I know he didn't get a Pro Bowl selection because Pro Bowl committee decided to put in Miles Sanders instead. But no, Christian McCaffrey has been nothing short of amazing. Deebo Samuel, we saw him have his really first big game of the season Deebo Samuel has been pretty quiet this year up until last week. Takes that huge screen all the way to the house. And it's amazing the kind of acceleration that Deebo Samuel has when he gets a ball in space. Add in George Kittle again, caught a 2-point conversion this week, was the first week in seemingly a month that he hasn't caught a touchdown, had 7 touchdowns in the last 4 games. These are all the weapons that the Cowboys have to concern themselves with. Oh, and I didn't even mention Brandon Aiyuk. If you go back to that playoff game last year, Brandon Aiyuk was cooking Trayvon Diggs. The only issue there was, as much as I love Jimmy Garoppolo, Jimmy G missed some throws to Brandon Aiyuk that would have ended that game. Can Brock Purdy hit those throws? And if he does, it might be all she wrote for the Cowboys.
You know, it's interesting that you brought up last year's playoff game, because one of the things I found super interesting was how the Cowboys used play, actually a pretty effective strategy. And then you saw against Tampa Bay, you saw them get Pollard involved and then run play actions where Dak's rolling out and hitting T.Y. Hilton or Dalton Schultz. Or there was one play to CeeDee Lamb that ended up setting up, I think it was the 4th touchdown that was like 30 yards. They kept running these bootlegs and play action plays, and it was effective against the Niners last year in the playoffs in moving the ball. So I expect them to do some of that. And like you said, the mobile quarterbacks are a bit of a problem for the 49ers. I know you've done more 49ers analysis than I have, and I'm taking a lot of your words and your analysis when it comes to that point. So the Cowboys and Eagles would have both been difficult matchups for the 49ers in that respect. I mean, the thing that makes it a whole lot easier is having guys like Bosa and Warner and Al-Shaair, who's had an amazing season like that. It makes it so much easier when you have those incredibly talented players. And I expect that the 49ers will figure something out. I mean, they have the number 2 scoring offense, the number 1 rushing defense, and the number 2 passing defense this year. So clearly they have the players to compete. The 49ers are just not normal at all. So, I mean, it'll be super, super interesting to watch that matchup against the Cowboys, because Cowboys offense versus 49ers defense does seem to be the most interesting thing. And on the flip side, Brock Purdy's a bubble. I've been saying it. It doesn't make sense that this is happening, and the 49ers might bullshit their way to a Super Bowl with Brock Purdy being the best quarterback in the NFL. But I mean, the bubble's going to burst at some point. I just don't know if it's going to be this week, next season. It's got to happen at some point. He can't be 130 passer rating every game. Well, because it's just not sustainable. Like he's had over 100 passer rating in all of his 6 starts so far this season. Like no quarterback in the NFL other than Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes does that. So one of these games, Brock Purdy is going to look like a rookie or look like a 22-year-old quarterback, because it's just impossible for it not to. The difference is whether or not the 49ers can win a Super Bowl in the meantime, because like I've said many times, I've seen Kyle Shanahan not once but twice win a playoff game in which the quarterback didn't make a throw for 2 consecutive hours.
My pushback on that is just, okay, there's already been points in which he has looked like a rookie. I just don't know if he would have that happen to him for an entire game. Because one thing I'm starting to learn from Brock Purdy, this is actually kind of a good reason why I actually did like Jimmy Garoppolo, was the bounce back mentality. You throw an interception, you make a bad play, you take a bad sack. You don't just get on the bench and pout about it. You go back to the next series and look to score a touchdown. That's what this kid has done every single time that he's had a rookie moment or rookie mistake. And I find that to be the most impressive thing about him so far. Is he a little bit of a statistical anomaly? Sure. But at the same time, we've been saying all this for years, that the Niners have the best coach, the best infrastructure, the best weapons. Well, eventually you would think that that would translate over to the quarterback position. We thought it was going to be Trey Lance. Why not Brock Purdy at this point?
Yeah.
I'm looking at like all the measurables, because we're going to start talking about that Brock Purdy, Trey Lance comparison at one point or another. Why not?
Not until after the season. Not until after the season.
I'm going to say right now, because Brock Purdy, 4-year starter, Iowa State. Trey Lance, 1-year full starter, North Dakota State. It's a relevant conversation to say, like, why would we doubt this guy just because of where he was drafted? When the Niners, they believed in him. They made a cut of Nate Sudfeld in training camp because they're like, we got to roll with this guy on the roster. There's something here. And you listen to Kyle Shanahan in his press conferences each and every week when people are asking about this Brock Purdy throw or that Brock Purdy throw. The guy's face lights up. I don't think I've seen Kyle Shanahan this happy talking about any of his quarterbacks ever. Matt Ryan,
Oh, you are
MVP
correct.
year
This is
ever.
yeah. This is absolutely a relevant conversation. Just wait until after they maybe win a Super Bowl with Brock Purdy. Let's wait until after they maybe win a Super Bowl with him as their
Well, my
quarterback
thing
to do it.
is
Because
just the statement, this will burst. This bubble will burst. Will it? Do we know for sure it will?
Not that Brock Purdy is going to be bad. I'm saying that it will be one of those games where he is going to be the reason why they don't succeed or fail. And that doesn't have to happen in the playoffs. Like, it doesn't have to be the next 3 games. For Nick Foles won a Super Bowl that way. And then the following season, it didn't happen until the playoff game against the Saints, when you took away Jason Peters and took away Lane Johnson. And all of a sudden, Nick Foles played awful in that game against the Saints. Like, it doesn't have to happen tomorrow, or it doesn't have to happen in the NFC Championship game. I'm just saying that what Brock Purdy is doing is unsustainable. And the difference between Brock Purdy being better than Jimmy Garoppolo or being great, like, he's literally the best quarterback in the NFL the last 6 games. In every statistical metric, he is one of the best quarterbacks, if not the best quarterback in the NFL. That I don't think is sustainable, because that would mean everyone was wrong about him. Not just every other team passing on him. It means the 49ers would have been incorrect about him by choosing to bring back Jimmy Garoppolo in training camp. Like, not only would every team have been wrong, it meant the Niners would have had to also have been wrong about Brock Purdy. So I think the more likely scenario is that Brock Purdy is having an incredible run because he is a better quarterback than Jimmy Garoppolo, and because he has 5 all-pro players plus another 1,000-yard receiver in Brandon Aiyuk on that offense. And as a result of that, the 49ers have had the best offense in the NFL since Brock Purdy took over as a quarterback. And whether or not they're the best offense or the 5th best offense is irrelevant. They can win a Super Bowl with either, because they have that incredible defense and all of those incredible players. So I'm not saying that to degrade Brock Purdy. It's just like, I thought when Vegas was saying that the Seahawks had a chance to win that game, I thought it was going to be because Brock Purdy did something bad, was going to be the reason why Vegas was saying that they thought the Seahawks had a chance to win. And ultimately, that wasn't really the case. I mean, there was no point in the game other than kind of in the middle when they were punting a whole bunch that you could say Brock Purdy was doing things bad. He wasn't turning the ball over. He was averaging 10 yards of completion. I think that Brock Purdy has exceeded every expectation and more, and he can do it again against Dallas. It's why I think San Francisco is going to the Super Bowl, and why, with a 4.5 point spread, I am picking San Francisco to win on Sunday against the Dallas Cowboys.
I can agree with that. I am also picking the 49ers win, but no surprise here. I'm not picking against my team in the playoffs. That's just not going to be a thing that's going to happen. But I will voice concerns. Obviously, you mentioned, will the bubble burst? Well, it doesn't have to burst like an all-time implosion. It doesn't need to be a Nathan Peterman performance. It doesn't need to be Trevor Lawrence in the first half against the Chargers. But if Brock Purdy was to throw an interception or 2, that would be the Cowboys' opportunity to get back in this game. I will also say this. I am a little concerned at points for the Niners defense. I know that might be surprising to some that are just kind of looking at the numbers of the San Francisco 49ers. But when you consider, as I mentioned, the second quarterback spot with Demondor Lenore, when you consider that Talanoa Hufanga, while he is a Pro Bowler, has tendencies to get a little bit greedy, look in the backfield, and go after the quarterback or the running back before he's able to adjust to play action or something over his head, which has allowed some big plays by the opposing teams in recent weeks. Even the Week 18 game against Arizona, the Niners defense got beat bad. Jimmy Ward made a boneheaded penalty before halftime against the Seahawks. This Niners defense, for whatever reason, the last few weeks hasn't looked as sharp, but in a big game spot, primetime television, network TV, Sunday Night Football against the Dallas Cowboys, Fox is going to be pulling in some big-time ratings with this game. 49ers, Cowboys, 2 of the biggest brands in the sport. I'm taking the Niners. Kyle's taking the Niners. Who are you taking? Let us know below in the comment section. Leave a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel. Follow us on all our social medias at SlumpBusterPod. From Juju and Kyle, stay safe, happy, and healthy. We will see you next time.